Welcome. I very much apologize for the late start. We were having some major technical difficulties because we're trying to do this as a simulcast as a web seminar, and this is the first time we're trying to do this, so we're kind of struggling a little bit, but I think we got it to work. So a couple of things before we jump in. My name is Debbie Rauscher, and I'm with California College Pathways. Welcome. We're glad to have you all here. Very excited about today's event. For those of you sitting in the back, we're going to have the presentations, but then I'm hoping we'll have an opportunity for discussion afterwards, and I really would love for the people that are on the web seminar to be able to hear what folks are saying. Unfortunately, we thought we were going to have a really great speakerphone to make that happen that would pick up all your voices, but because of our technological difficulties, we're doing it on a cell phone. And so if those of you that are in the back maybe can move up, that way when we have that discussion portion, the folks that are on listening through the phone will be able to hear what you have to say. So because we're running late, I'm just going to jump in really quick. So again, thank you all for being here. We're going to start out with Chris and Jeremy from the Riverside area who are going to talk about their mentoring program. So welcome to Chris and Jeremy.
Thank you guys. How are you guys doing?
Good. You guys can talk into the
Awesome. Okay. Are we, yeah? Okay. You guys can go ahead and click to that. Oh, there you go. So, yeah, hi, everybody. My name is Chris, like I said, representing Riverside City College. And I'm part of Riverside City College, but I was located at the Rain Valley College, which is part of our district. So we're both within RCC district. So what we're here to talk about today is the peer mentoring program that we started with at RCC. So first we wanted to talk a little bit of background, though, that Jeremy's going to go over about who we were on campus, what our program did, and kind of how we started the peer mentor program. Yeah, so just to give you guys a little bit of background, in 2005, RCC gained the IFC grant from Department of Social Services. And the grant ran until 2013, so we just finished our grant, and we're hoping to, get started again. But we did end that grant in 2013. But during this time, we were able to work with a lot of foster youth. In the beginning, when we first gained the grant in 2005, there was a lot of transitioning going on. Of course, we were brand new to it. We were, green, as they say. And we had a lot of changes that happened during that time. We were pulled in a lot of different directions. So we were taking cues from social workers. We were taking cues, from the college. So we were kind of dragged in a lot of different ways. But fortunately, we had that time to kind of come to, what we ended up really focusing in on. And in 2010, RCC gained a grant from CCP, Community College Pathways. And we kind of were able to hone in at that time on the college youth, which we, the whole time, really like, oh, we need these college youth, and we were kind of always being told to younger youth, younger foster youth, but in 2010, we were really able to focus on the college-attending foster youth. So then in fall of 2011, Chris and I created the peer mentor program that we're going to focus in on today and tell you guys more about. And so we implemented the peer mentor program on both the RCC and the Rain Valley College campus. And so we ran both of those on both campuses. So one of these things that we wanted to do was obviously to create something where not only are we trying to assist foster youth as they come in to see us, get them matriculated into the college, get them ready to start attending. But we wanted to go a little bit deeper than that, focus in on a specific cohort of foster youth, and try to create a sense of community for them, something where they can feel like they belong at the college, and it's not just they're by themselves trying to figure this out on their own, with our help or without. So that's why we wanted to focus in on their peers, the groups of foster youth that are coming in, and try to make it so that they could help each other. So, obviously this was brand new for us. We just kind of tried to research everything that was out there already to find out how do we start this. That's what we said, how do we start? Obviously the first step we had to do was identify the foster youth that are actually on our campus and that are coming to us. From that we have to outreach to them, let them know who we are, why we're here. Select our mentors, based on criteria that we'll talk about a little bit later. train them. You know, we just didn't want to throw anybody in there to start mentoring without some kind of background and some kind of, you know, feeling at least a little bit prepared for that. And obviously we had to, you know, kind of supervise and just oversee the entire program and make sure it was running smoothly. So that's kind of what we'll talk about for this presentation. So this is how we started identifying false youth on campus. We had 4 basic ways that we did it. The first way, because we had the ILP contract with the county at that time, we shared a database with the county. So we could see, both county social workers and us at the college could see all the foster youth and their information, case notes, all the thing. We could see it all at the same time. That was helpful in a lot of ways, but once again, like Jeremy mentioned, you know, our responsibilities at this time were huge. We had to teach life skills. We had to make sure students were finding housing and doing all that as well. So it was both a blessing and somewhat of a burden. So what we did to focus specifically on the foster youth at college is we used the Chafee roster. So we developed a really good relationship with our financial aid FYSI liaison on campus. She was in financial aid, and she managed the Chafee roster. So she would send that to us every time it was updated.
Does everybody know what the Chafee roster is?
Right. So that's what we did. We just made sure that everybody that was on there, we would contact, outreach to them. And she was really good about working with us to do that. And obviously the last 2, you know, it didn't catch everybody. Obviously a limitation with the Chafee roster is they had to have applied for the Chafee grant. Otherwise they wouldn't appear on that list. So if there's foster youth on campus that aren't necessarily there, but, you know, they hear about our program, word of mouth from other friends, students, they would sometimes come and see us. And social workers would call us as well.
And we went round and round with that because we know of working with so many foster youth, they would say, what's the Chafee grant? What's, you know, what's this, what's that? So we knew going into it that the Chafee grant wasn't going to be 100%, you know, tell all for who's on campus and who can we serve. So the Chafee roster in and of itself is great, but it still has limitations because all the time we would hear, what's the Chafee roster? So that did have limitations. But given the 4, you know, given these 4 ways of identifying them on campus was kind of our way that we went about it. Yes?
So sorry, if I can interrupt you.
Yeah, I wanted to find out if I could do that.
Yeah, so let me just say a couple things that I meant to say at the beginning, but because of the way that we're trying to do this as a simulcast on a web seminar, we get to reach a lot of people, but we also kind of lose a little bit from each format. So what I'd like to do, if it's okay with folks, is to have them go through their presentation first, and then we'll do questions, and we'll actually try and take the phone and kind of get near to you when you have your questions during the question period so that everybody that's on the phone can hear you. So if you can just make a note of the questions that you have, and then after their presentation we'll do it, and after Damon's presentation we'll have questions for him as well. So thank you very much.
And if you get the phone, you can play Angry Birds in the middle of it. So next one, please.
Yeah. So, you know, these are just some of the ways that we went about outreaching to the students. Obviously, we had the information that we got from the Chafee roster or our shared database. So we would make calls. We would send general emails explaining our program, why we were there, and what we were trying to do with the mentoring program. We utilized social media to an extent. We created a Facebook group page so that they could join in and have that online component as well. That's kind of how we started it, and hopefully the idea was to transition it into more of a actual socialization rather than just online. And the third thing that really kicked things into high gear was when the priority registration law passed in 2012, January 2012, because that gave us a chance to really have a captive audience of those foster youth that are coming in, and we created our own little, you know, campus-specific verification process for foster youth. And that was a way to kind of get people into the office and get them learning about what we were trying to do.
Yeah, and another, you know, we did the whole Facebook thing, and one other thing that we would want to do if we have the chance again is that we would do a Twitter, you know, Twitter accounts where we would be telling the foster youth about priority registration, because during this time is really where the rubber was hitting the road with priority registration. So given that chance, I think something like Twitter, using a Twitter account, hey, make sure you're doing priority registration, because going through the process, I know a lot of my students were saying, I missed the party registration deadline. I didn't know, even though we were doing all we could to do social media, contact through email, phone calls. It was, I think that Twitter, I don't know. I mean, I hear that little chirp in class, and like, are you guys on Twitter? Yeah. Okay, well, we'll use that. So that was something that came about later. So if you're thinking about doing it, I think a Twitter account would be good as well. So one of the first things, verification. We were thinking, how are we going to verify that these truly are foster youth? Like I said, we had our own database to verify them. But we developed a process in which new students visited departments to turn in foster youth verification, or word of the court letter. Some people call it the dependency letter that comes from the county. So we wanted to have that on file just as our backup, because we could say that they were foster youth. We would know the whole background, but we still wanted to make sure that anybody came to us, we would have a word of the court letter on file for them. And then during that time, we would provide them with a packet of information. So we would give them relevant information for campus support services, EOPS, DSPS, Disabled Student Services. So, we asked them questions about their secondary completion. Did they complete high school? Did they have their GED? We also asked them about their stability, their housing. So we had, like I'm sure a lot of you guys know, we had very few resources for housing. My house was full, so I couldn't employ them into my house, but I would have loved to. But, very few prospects for housing, in our area, which is the, Inland Empire, Riverside area. We had a few programs that we would refer them to, but a lot of times they'd be waiting lists, that kind of thing. But we would help them out with that. And then employment status. Being on campus, we had student employment, that if they were going to school, we could hook them up with student employment. So we gave them information about that as part of the packet. And we wanted to know that if they had had an IEP in high school, their special education, so that we could connect them to Disabled Student Services. Most of the foster youth, well, I wouldn't say most, but a high majority of them did have an IEP in high school. So it was, it was definitely paramount that we connected them to those services and made sure going into it they knew all about the assistance that they would get through Disabled Student Services.
So this is the process we went through to actually select not only our mentors, but the cohort of people that we wanted to receive the mentoring program. Our mentees, we focused on 15 new foster youth to the college on each campus. So 15 in Riverside and 15 in Reno Valley, brand new students. Obviously, we kind of already talked about it. We gave those names through the verification process and reached out to them through email and through the ways we just talked about. What we did to select our mentors, we had 4 mentors on each campus, 4 at Riverside and 4 at Reno Valley. And we hired them through Federal Work Study. So the money was already there. This did not cost our program any extra money. We had that ILP grant that was $800-some thousand, and none of that money went to this program. So really any campus can do this, okay? We went through Federal Work Study and worked with the director of that program just to make sure she knew what we were trying to do. It was a little bit of a different type of Federal Work Study job, I would say. So we just had to have those meetings ahead of time to explain this is what we're trying to do, so she could kind of get on board with that as well. The mentors that we selected, we required them to have at least successfully completed 1 semester at the college and has, transitioned into their next semester so that they have that experience, the knowledge of the campus, and what it takes to be, a successful student. To select them, we actually did write up a job description for them, telling them about what their duties are, their responsibilities, and we actually held interviews just like, a normal job or a normal Federal Work Study job, so we could kind of go through and select them. Okay, so basically after we had our mentors together, we held a training for them. Obviously our topics included like the role of the mentor, responsibilities they have. We focused a lot on boundary issues. This was a very sort of, fluid type of relationship, so we wanted to make sure that they had the proper boundaries with the people that they were mentoring. And also effective communication, making each interaction with their mentee actually count, not just, oh, hey, how you doing? Oh, how'd you do in that class? Okay, right? It was more about really like active things that we wanted them to try to take away from how to be a successful student.
And this was an interesting process. This was my favorite of the training process because we talked to them about, we had scenarios. And you have to understand, these students are attending class just like their, the mentees are going to be attending. So they could be sitting right next to their mentee, mentor taking the same class. So after we went through that process, we realized there might be some boundary issues. They're saying, I may not want to share information with my classmates. So we did scenarios of, if you're in the same class with one of your mentees, what do? How do you act? What if they are scared that, you're going to tell their friends in that class, or you guys have a group project, whatever. So this was an interesting, the boundaries issues was really interesting. And the whole phone thing, are you going to give them your number? We didn't say that they couldn't, but we said, once you open that box, be careful, If you have a student calling you at midnight, is that a boundary issue for you? It wouldn't be for me, but at their age, maybe it's not. Maybe that's the best time to talk to their mentor. So we kind of had to open up the traditional way of doing things and say, how is this, we would ask them in those scenarios, how does this affect you? And how do you think about this? And they were really able to put things in perspective when we did that. Because even going about it, we were like, we didn't realize that they're going to be sitting next to some of them in class, things like that.
So, I'm sorry, this is kind of like sliding to the. This is just a sample of one of the training slides that we did for our mentors to talk about what we just mentioned: the boundary issues, misconceptions about mentoring versus reality. So this is actually like just an example of a slide that we would use in our training to go over. And I think the next one is as well, talking about what a mentor is not. Just to make sure that they understood. Once again, their role and their boundary issue. A mentor is not a surrogate parent, professional counselor, social worker, lending institution, obviously.
A romantic partner?
Right.
I had an exclamation point on that because we're like, we don't want to see mentor and mentee, sit there and like, whoa, calm down. So we made sure to focus in on that because you never know. So pairing was, once again, a learning curve. We were saying, do we pair them based on what we feel is right? Do we do like a natural selection and, just throw them together? So what we did was, it kind of ended up being both. It's not always an intuitive process. You can't plan for pairing two people together. You never know how it's going to work. So, so we had some trial and error involved. We actually did do like a random, the whole name out of the hat. Okay, this one goes with this one, very random. But, after it all kind of came to fruition, we would notice that some of them were, just too quiet. One person was both of them were quiet, so they weren't interactive. So then we'd see one real loud and one quiet, and we're like, okay, that let's try to switch this up. So we did intercept. We did end up intercepting some of the relationships or the pairing, and so we would match one based on how we felt, and it did work because some of them that were a little more outspoken brought some that were too quiet out of that. I'm getting a call. It is actually getting a call. Oh, okay. He's at work. I'm sorry. So we did end up intercepting, and it did work out for us to do that. So in the end, I know that Chris, he was working with some that had similar interests in career goals.
We specifically had a mentor and a mentee that wanted to have the same major, and so that was a magical pairing because my mentor had already almost finished with his auto technology program, and the new person coming in was interested in AutoTech but had zero idea of what that meant. So, that mentee hit that first class and was expecting to jump in and start working on cars, and it was all textbook. And he was like, I don't want to do this. I want to actually work with my hands and stuff. So the mentor was right there to be able to tell him, here's what you can expect. In this next class, you're going to start doing this and that. It was beautiful. So when that works out like that, it's just, it's great. So this is the main message we wanted to get across to our mentors. For our mentors to get to the mentees, that is anyway, treat school as if it were your job. I heard that advice some time back, and I thought it was like the best thing I could try to impart. So we wanted to say that your role as a mentor is to help your mentee become a professional student. to take it seriously and to take your future seriously as if you just landed a job that paid you. Because it's the same thing. It leads to something better for you, and you need to take it seriously and really invest your time in it. We had a lot of issues with that, so we wanted to make sure that they understood that. So these are the strategies we try to make, for our mentors to give to the mentees. Obviously, if they hadn't completed matriculation, they'd help them through that process, the step-by-step process. Assist students in accessing all those campus support services that they were, eligible for, EOPS and DSPS, all that. A huge one is just to empower the effective time management. That's one of the biggest challenges is the fall students coming from high school into college, I guess really for any student coming from high school to college. And, rather than us telling them, hey, you have to have good time management skills, they could hear it from their mentor saying, like, this happened to me when I started college. I, messed up. I wasn't taking it seriously. I hope it made it more real for them. And they, like, I can really hang on to this because this is a person that's not much older from me, and they're going through the same thing.
Similar background.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, really the last thing is that, our role, myself, Jeremy, we were there to be available to both the mentors and the mentees. We wanted to make sure we could troubleshoot any issues that arise. We didn't have a whole lot of huge issues, but if a mentor and mentee were having a difficult time, we wanted to be there to mediate that and just make sure that everything was flowing okay. And obviously, if the mentors were not aware of certain community resources that we were there to step in and say, this person might be eligible for this and that. So.
Yeah, and this was an interesting process because, a lot of it, when do you step in? And we were talking to them weekly, of course, when they would come in and say, how is the relationship developing? How are things going? Some of them would say, oh, good. I'm able to contact some of them. And some of them were saying, they won't call me back. So we were stepping in at certain times, sending an email. Remember, your mentor is trying to get a hold of you. Please contact your mentor. How are things going? So we were giving them both the support of us and the support of their mentor. But some of them just straight up said they will not call me back. And I would talk to them like, are you feeling weird about this? Being a mentee, do you not want this? And some of them say, I just don't want to deal with it. And so I'm like, all right, So we lost some of them in that respect because some of them were saying, well, I'm scared to spend too much time. I'm scared to devote myself to more stuff. And we said, that's perfectly fine. We're here just to help you, so feel comfortable to come in and out as you please. Come back to us at any time. So this was, the supervision part was an interesting perspective of it. So lessons learned. We got a lot on here, but we'll just go through a few. So mentoring really needs the dedicated time and the nurturing to become effective. Like I said in the beginning, part of the ILP grant that we had, we were pulled in a lot of different directions, and we did give it a lot of thought and a lot of planning that was involved in it, but really it needs the time to kind of develop, And so given another chance, I think that given the history that we've done it now, we could probably, do it a lot more effectively. And we love this, we thought about, we're always wanting to do some kind of guidance class at our school. We, of course, I'm sure it's very difficult to get any class passed on the college campus. And so we were not able to get a guidance class, but that was our mantra. We would come in and we'd say, oh, how are we going to get a guidance class? Or how are we going to get this? And our director's like, you're starting to get on my nerves. Because if they have some kind of shared experience going through a class together, saying, hey, you should have gone to that foster youth ILP guidance class, that kind of thing, that would have really resonated with them. So we've always wanted to do that. So keep your fingers crossed for that, so hopefully in the future. Participants have to buy into the concept that mentoring can make a positive difference. We can sit here and say all that we want about how this is going to help them, what they're going to get out of it, but they really have to, everybody has to buy in. The mentor has to buy in, the mentee has to buy in, and some of them, to be honest with you, just did not buy into it. We had a few great success stories, but some of them just were like, it doesn't work, and it doesn't work for me, it doesn't work for my mentee, so it just didn't work, and that's how it's going to happen. one way that this could happen would be for the small victories. So what were we talking about with the experience of the small victories?
Yeah, we just had a few on the next couple
Oh,
slides.
one, yeah.
We're not going to go really into it, but just the little things I think that might have made a bigger difference than even we realized at the time. For instance, we had a mentor named Robin. She helped her student access tutoring that the student really didn't know about, and she did. So she got her connected with a math tutor to help her with an algebra class she was struggling with and get her past that. I already talked about Ryan and his AutoTech program. The last one on the next slide, our mentor, Katura, helped the youth that was actually experiencing homelessness. Our mentor was actually currently staying in a transitional housing program in the local area and was able to kind of give him that information about that program. We had the same thing. I mean, we had the application and we had like a general overview of what the program was, but our mentor was in it. So she knew the day-to-day responsibilities and the time commitment and what you had to do to be successful in that transitional housing program. So she was able to work with that mentee and help him to try to apply and just give him the expectation of like what can happen, in this program. So, it was just those things that we wanted to focus in on. Sometimes it's the littlest thing that we noticed anyway that would, derail the train for a new student, especially from foster care coming in. One little slip up or barrier that they experience and they're like, I'm out, So that's what we would try to focus in on. If they could, alleviate those small problems and keep that train rolling, that's what we wanted to try to do. And this is just a picture of our Riverside mentors that we've had back in fall of 2011.
And we had, it was funny because a young lady would come into our lab, our general lab at the Marine Valley College, and I would see her all the time. Never knew she was foster youth, never knew any of it. And then her, in the mix of doing the mentor program, she got an email and got connected to one of our mentors. And the mentor was like, oh, Jeremy, this is my mentee. And I'm like, oh my God, I've seen this girl in here every week, but did not know. She was too shy to come up to me and say, oh, she knew all about the ILT program. She knew all about, our services, but was just too shy. And so this outgoing mentor, hey, here she is, Jeremy, check her out, and it was just a connection. The girl ended up moving to Kentucky, the mentor, and that foster youth that she was helping never stopped asking us. From that moment on, she was in our office, hey, Jeremy, how's it going? Oh, I need this, or hey, have you heard about this? So it was like, I told Chris, it was like watching a tree grow, right out of the planter. Oh my God, and then you couldn't stop her. She was talking to other people in the lab. It was a really cool thing to see. So that was our little story.
So, we just wanted to end on the quote that we have up there and just talk about how mentoring is a liberatory task, and that's really what we found out, similar to what education is anyway, and all the work that everybody does here. That's why we're here, and that's why we had a lot of self-satisfaction for what we did. So thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Okay.
Sure. So what I'd like to do is actually do questions that folks have for Chris and Jeremy now, before we move on to Damon. After we do questions, we're going to take a really, really, really brief break for those folks who are here in the room to get up and grab lunch. There's not going to be a break to eat lunch. It's just going to be to grab your lunch and bring it back to your seat and eat it at your seat for the rest of the presentation. So we know that everybody is super busy, and we wanted to be respectful of your time and kind of really multitask. You're going to be eating while you're listening to Damon's presentation. So we're going to do questions. So for those of you who are on the phone, you should see that your webinar interface has a place where you can type in questions. I know several of you typed in earlier at the beginning of the presentation saying things like, I can't hear you. We haven't started yet. So I think most of you are familiar with that. So if you guys have questions on the phone, you can type them into the webinar interface, and I will read them aloud to Chris and Jeremy. But why don't we start with those folks in the room? And so those of you in the room who have questions, if you can please speak loudly so that those who are listening through a small little cell phone can hear your questions, that would be great. And I'll let you guys kind of facilitate those questions from the computer.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have an advisory on campus
to kind of bring in the different services that you know the young people are going to access, like EDD, DPSS.
Yes.
Yes, on both of the campuses, it was difficult and it was a challenge to get everybody together. EOPS had their own advisory committee that they were creating, and so we just kind of piggybacked on that and would get into that, and that was a great way to spread the word about what we were doing prior to registration, and yeah, it was a great collaborative effort to do that, and definitely expanding on that. And it's a great question because I think having that support on campus is worth its weight in gold. It really is.
You're doing campus.
Yeah.
Have you extended to the community so that you get feedback on how the referees are making it and things like that? So.
Well, we were connected to the Department of Social Services through the ILP grant. So at any kind of collaborative meeting that we had with them, we would share what we were doing. We also had a newsletter that we were sending out. So we had the on-campus support to do a newsletter that Chris and I would write, and so we would put all that good stuff in there too. So we tried to like through our network too, the social media, we tried to do the Facebook and get that out there and connect everybody. And Chris had an RCC as well, the collaborative meetings and stuff. Yeah, good question. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Or do you have a modified definition for
We did use the same definition. Yes.
I'm worried about the sound. So maybe you could answer the question.
Oh, okay. Sure. So the question was, do we use the same form of verification as the Chafee roster? Oh, the definition. Okay, so the same definition as what constitutes a foster youth. Yes, we did use the same definition as the Chafee roster. We would simply, if they were verified on the Chafee roster, then we would say that they are, eligible. But we would, our kind of like gold standard was the word of the court letter. If they were able to bring in a verified letter from the county saying that they were in foster care, then we would use that. We also had our own database from the county that we would share, and so we would always look them up on there. If they were from another county, say LA County, then we would contact LA County and verify that they were foster youth. They would fax those word of the court letters or dependency letters right to us, and then we had that. Well, I can tell you this, we never had a point to where we had a problem verifying somebody that was actually a foster youth. Of course, we had all kinds of students saying, oh, help this person, they need help, and say, oh, are you foster youth? No, I wasn't a foster youth, but I just need some assistance. And we would go about about referring them to the appropriate campus support.
I have a question for the internet, which is what office at RCC was the mentoring program?
It was run out of the Workforce Preparation Department at RCC and Moreno Valley.
Yeah, Workforce Prep at Moreno Valley and RCC. Yes, sir.
It sounds, based on how you were describing, the services of students participating when it comes to being a former foster youth, you didn't take age into account. The Chafee program takes that age into account from 16 to 18. Did you guys do that with your program, or anytime during when at the youth, if they were in foster care, you guys check them in?
Yeah, you mean between age 16 and
right. That's what the Chafee does.
Right.
Yeah, right. Program. But let's say, for example, a student was in the foster care at the age of 15.
Okay.
Had no more foster care.
Right. Right. I see what you're saying.
Will you guys still?
I think based on the FAFSA, it's age 13, if I'm not, and above.
Anytime after
right.
age of 13.
So in a case like that, we would, like Jeremy said, we'd go back to the word of court letter. We'd ask for proof from them to bring it in or get it from the social worker just to verify. Yeah.
And there are.
Yeah, with financial. Yeah.
And then they have my goodness, they have an age limit on the priority registration as well. 24. Yeah, 24. So we would assist them, up until that age as well. But our program, the ILP program, could only assist them if they're ILP eligible till they were age 21. So we had age limitations all over the place. Are you ILP eligible? Then we can help you till 21. With monetary services like paying for their books and things like that. If they were only, foster youth but not ILP eligible, then we would help them with non-monetary services and help them, get connected to the priority registration process and all that. Yes, sir.
Yeah, on the identifying the youth on campus, you approach the campuses on their application, put in a box in there checking if you are you or have you ever been aboard a course. That will identify them right away. And the reason I say that is because nationally, within the first week of a student going to school, if they don't make some kind of connection, they drop out. So if you can catch them early, I mean, it's 2% across the nation. Just imagine what it is for foster youth on campus across the nation. So yeah, if you can do that and identify them earlier, you may catch a lot more students coming in that way.
And that's a great question. So for those of you on the phone, so the question was, have we started a process where they were able to check a box on the application process? And yes, the RCC district did have a box on there asking a question, were you a former foster youth? And so it was actually Chris and I sitting around, what do they do with that information? And we asked, where does that information go? And it never went anywhere. So they had it on there. They were set up to identifying, who the foster youth were, but really no avenue to have them go down. And so we asked if we could employ a letter that went out instantly, an email. When they check that box, they get an email saying, hey, there's these foster youth programs on campus, and they're going to help you do A, B, and C. So we were actually in the process of getting all that squared away as our grant came to a close. But we were finding out, we were contacting our the gentleman that takes care of the the data and the application, and so we were saying, send us a list of everybody that checked that box. So we would get the list, and then Chris and I would split them up amongst the campus, RCC and Moreno Valley, and then we would send an email blast with the letter that we created that we always wanted to go into the main system. We just we just kind of threw it in there, and so we ended up doing that. But we're hoping, like, that's one of the main things, is that if we can start at that process, checking that box, and then starting the verification process from there. I mean, awesome. Yeah,
that should be the idea.
Yeah. So great question. Yes, ma'am.
This was designed for peer mentors, but would you have an interest for volunteer mentors in the community?
I definitely would. That's something that, we didn't, kind of time ran out on us, but that is something that me personally, I would love to see. We did make a connection toward the end with a local faith-based organization called the Turn Network, and they were interested in doing something like that, mentoring for foster youth. And so I was able to have one meeting with them, but, obviously just because of the constraints, it didn't go as far as I'd like to, but that would be a great help.
Yes, ma'am.
Kind of piggybacking or adding to what she was suggesting, did you find that you needed to mentor the mentor? That, you spoke a lot about the beginning training that you were doing, and I saw that, and that's great.
Yeah.
But is there ongoing training for your peer mentors so that they, maintain their grade, maybe this mentor to those mentors?
Right.
Yeah.
And we did, we did in the time that we allotted, is aside from us, kind of handling the training, we also were able to make a connection with the STEM program on campus that had done a mentor program of their own. And so we had contacted the staff person in charge of that, and she came down to share her experience with it after the training that we gave. So yeah, that was really important. We wanted to keep the momentum and keep them engaged in it, So yeah, we definitely tried to.
Yeah, and the mentors were all eligible for our services as well. So during this time, they're coming up and saying, hey, Jeremy, I need, books. Okay, here's your books, and I'm going to tell my mentee about the book services as well. So it was a full circle of services. I think we only had a couple of them that were just turning like 22 that weren't going to be available for the services anymore, right. But they were right in that age where they were just receiving services and then all a part of our department and everything. So yeah. Yes, sir.
Have you made a connection with CYC, the California Youth Connection, there in Moreno Valley? Riverside. Yeah, actually have that connection.
Yeah, one of our mentors is actually in CYC as well, so we definitely had that.
Yeah.
And their meetings were actually held at our campus. We went to several of them. So.
Yeah, Chris and I went to Sacramento at the CYC conference for the first time, and it was outstanding to see, and be part of that. So, yeah, more of that, as well as CASA. You know, CASA, Court-Appointed Special Advocate, they were part of CYC because we had one of the adult supporters there from CASA. So we tried, you know, you tried your best to kind of get all these people in the room. So we did have a good support network with CASA and CYC and everything too.
You guys would be great adult support for CYC.
Yeah, we are actually. Well, we were for a while, and then it's just like being, you know, the Sacramento thing was awesome, and you know, just with the mix of everything, it was hard to keep up. But yeah, but it's a great program, CYC.
Great.
Thank you.
Great. So we are going to take a 5-minute break. For those of you on the phone, stick around. Maybe you can take a quick bathroom break. The folks in the room, so right around the corner here is a table with some box lunches, and you guys have the little fold-out tables at your seats to eat on. So I know there's going to probably be a tendency to want to start socializing and interacting with each other, but if we can move through, get the food really quickly, then at the end we can have lots of time for socializing, but I want to make sure we leave plenty of time for Damien's fantastic presentation.
And then bathrooms around the corner are there as well.
Sure that the phone's not done. So.
Okay, so I know that everybody's eating right now and there's going to be some noise going around. So I'm going to start talking a little bit soft because I have no idea how loud I am on this thing. And I have got a big mouth. So I'm going to start a little soft, and if I hear any complaints over there about not being in here, I'll get bigger, I promise. Okay, my name is Daniel. I work with Orange Coast College. I run a program there called Guardian Scholars. I also run a transitional housing program in Orange County for Orangewood Children's Foundation called Rising Tide. So if you do work with youth that you're thinking about, we have a lot of LA, we got Riverside, we got kids that come from all over the place to Orange County. If you have people that are looking for transitional housing, by all means, you're welcome to contact me for that stuff as well. But for today, I'm going to talk about Orange Coast College. So I'm going to touch on a few things. When Debbie called me last week to come up to talk today, she talked about, she asked me about retention strategies, and I was even thinking about intervention strategies, because for me, a lot of times we're running into intervention when we're talking about retention with a lot of the youth that we work with, because it seems to me, and I've been working with foster youth now for 6 years, it seems to me, and I'm a former foster youth myself, so I remember a lot of crisis intervention going on. So it seems to me that we're running into a lot of crisis quite a bit, and having to do with several different things that the gentleman just spoke about. Go ahead and flip it to the next one. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about Guardian Scholars. So Guardian Scholars on our campus was actually the very first Guardian Scholars program in a community college. We actually, Cal State Fullerton started it, and the gentleman that started, Ron Davis, started it there. I was talking, and our Orange Coast College Foundation member went up to him after, and Ron Davis said, great, I want you to start a Guardian Scholars Day. Here's $25,000. And so we began. And that was about 12 years ago. Just a few years ago, I was approached by, OCC was approached by Career Alliance Project and asked to, for us to take on a grant or write a proposal for a grant in which we were approved, and to set a program that's a little bit more intensive for the foster youth that are on our campus. The Guardian Scholars at that particular time were amazing people, but they were underneath a department that was already very busy. And so they were wearing a lot of different hats. And so for us, it was all about how do we make sure that they're getting their support services, including the money that they were being just handed over, all these checks that they're handed over, and also be able to do some follow-up to making sure that that money that they're receiving is actually working. And so we began the Guardian Scholars program a few years ago. So in our office, a few of the things that we do, the respond to calls is actually we make calls. We are lucky enough that we have amazing relationships that we've developed over the few years on campus, specifically with our EOPS program, which allows us, and our OC Foundation, which brings in donations, right? So we kind of hang on to those guys because they got the money. And so through that, we have two people that work in our office, and then we pulled in a work study student that's also a former foster youth. So respond to calls is actually make calls. Every day, our Guardian Scholars assistant that works in our office is going up and down through the files of 123 students that are on our campus. Every day she's making calls to them just to check in. And so she might get halfway through in a couple of weeks, and then she gets halfway through in a couple of weeks, and then we just have her begin again. So every day she's making those kinds of phone calls. The other phone call she makes is through our database. She actually makes phone calls out to what we consider the no students, okay? The no students for us is a whole database of the 250-some-odd, 260-some-odd students that we've worked over the past few years, and then those are the ones that have come to us, been in the campus, and then had to leave for whatever reason. So she also makes calls to the no students, and I love that. We get to click on that status, very easy database that we created called Access. We stole that. Okay, I'm going to talk about stealing stuff later on. So we stole that, and we click on Access, and on the status it gives us a list of all the no students, and we make calls to them too. Incentive program. We created an incentive program because here's the deal. My wife the other day had had a conversation with her. She's been with Enterprise Rent-A-Car, in case you all need a car at some point. She's been with Enterprise Rent-A-Car for about 12 years. And she loves a lot of it and hates the corporate world, loves more than what I do. She wants my job. She wants me to quit and take my job. The incentive program we talked about with her was, how can we keep her liking her job, right? And so she wants to, they were talking about creating an incentive program for her about every month, every couple months, that she's incentivized to like her job. Kind of sounds sad, but that's how a lot of us work, I think. And so we did that with the youth that we work with. We created an incentive program. They get points only by connecting to things that are on and off campus that will help them stay on campus. So if they do events, if they volunteer, if they connect with professors on their campus at the office hours, if they go to their Student Success Center to get tutoring, all of these things, if they join a club, all of these things they get points for. And as they get more and more points, we give them more and more stuff. They get meal cards. Last semester we gave out 3, which were donated to us, 3, not laptops, but pads. It wasn't iPad, it was a Samsung. There's a $300 pad, and 3 of them got it. They made 40 points, and that's quite a bit. I mean, you've got to struggle to get that to that level, and these 3 did it. It was awesome to be able to give out. We have pictures of them smile like this. GPA tracker. We have a separate list on the Access, again, so on Access we have a GPA tracker. We watch what happens to their GPA every semester. And so we track that. So what we see is this. Some of them go like, they're 3.5, and all of a sudden they're 2.0. Like, whoa, what happened? And so that enables us to be able to track them. And that gives me a chance to be able to call them and go, hey, what's going on here? And that's a great way to be able to do that. Very simple way to be able to do that. College tours. Again, stealing. Talk about it later. We take them on college tours to different campuses because here's the thing. Even the ones at our community college, we have a lot of them that are actually in certificate programs, which the idea of gaining certificate programs, gaining experience, blah, blah, all that stuff. Well, we have a ton of them that are in certificate programs, and so why would we bring them to a college campus? To show them what else is out there, to give them a motivation, to let them know that this is not it, that if they decided later on that they wanted to go, they could do that, and just to keep them on campus. I mean, that's the biggest thing. A lot of these kids, like I was working with a young man straight from juvenile hall. We have 5 juvenile hall kids that are in our program right now, and talking about, who you bring in as far as like the age limits and where they're coming from. We work with juvenile hall as well. And I had a juvenile hall kid that was in the day after he got out, he came to our office, and that happens quite a bit. And we talked about what are you doing now? And he said, oh, I was at home with my sister. I was playing games all day. And I'm like, all right, so you want to be a college student? So let's act like a college student. Let's get you on campus. And he said, I don't have classes. Who cares? Let's make up things to get you on campus. And so college tours was a way for us to make up reasons for them to stay on campuses. With EOPS, we follow EOPS guidelines. And so we have them do 2 appointments, one at the beginning and one at the end, whether they're an EOPS or not. And for our program, one of the requirements is that if you're eligible for EOPS, you are in EOPS because they have more money than we do, right? So we have them do 2 appointments, whether they're in or out, and then we have them do a progress report, whether they're in EOPS or not. Halfway through the semester, they turn a progress report in just like you with EOPS. And then we can see how you're doing halfway through the semester. You know, with the calls, we're seeing that hopefully we're catching things early, but sometimes we don't get in touch with them. You know, that happens. Intervention. So what happens if they're getting kicked out of EOPS? What happens if they're, you know, bailing on classes? What happens with all that stuff? Well, what we started to do last semester is we started to have, I have one particular counselor that I work with that specifically does a really great job that works in the EOPS office. Her name is Vita. And we do intervention meetings with them. We sit down, me and Vita, and go, okay, we want you to do this. It's difficult for you to understand kind of what's going on, so I'm going to paint the picture for you about what we see happening, and then you decide what you want to do with it. And so you're losing EOPS. You're losing this funding possibility. Now what do we do with it? You know, what things can we connect you with to get you back? And then group meetings for EOPS reentry. So for instance, for those of you that know much about EOPS loses a lot of students because they just don't show up for appointments. They just don't turn in their progress reports. And so we have a lot of our youth that are doing the same thing. And so what we started doing was, Steve Tominaho was actually an amazing gentleman. He was the director of EOPS at the time. Now he's a bigger title, but he still oversees EOPS. But he meets with our youth in group meetings. Our youth that are not showing up to their things that they're supposed to for EOPS, he'll take a group of them and go, what the hell is going on? You know, and kind of give that flip side, that kind of authoritative side to say, listen, you need to understand from our standpoint, the school standpoint, what's going on here. And then, of course, we bring them in our office and wipe the tears and then calm them down, right? So that's what goes on there. Next slide, please. Flip to the next one. Pretend you didn't see that. We're going to pretend like you're a jury right now. That evidence did not show up. So the biggest thing that we're going to talk about today is the Summer Institute. So what I saw was, you know, somebody said that nasty statistic of only 2% graduating college. I can't remember who said that, but I heard it earlier. Nationwide, that is a disgusting statistic, right? We all see that, and I've seen it as low as 1%, as high as 5% that graduate. Either way, it's gross, right? So as we began to develop this program, we began to look at who's dropping out of school, why are they dropping out of school, and so for us, and I think a lot of you would really understand this and probably say this quite often, for us, a student that goes to school, shows up to class, does their work, and then gets the hell out of there when they're finished with the class, that student might be a good student, possible, very possible, a lot of students do that, but the connectivity that they have to the campus is not there. And if it's not there, it's much more difficult to really get connected to your education and the educational career. And these guys touched on that, the idea of the educational career, you know. So what we did was we said, so those that are struggling, those that, you know, on that teetering point, those that have even bounced out already, we want to get them back somehow. So how can we do that? So we started with, you know, people call it a bridge program. I've heard that called, this program called that. But I think it is very much more different than a bridge program. We began doing this by realistically reaching out, and our main focus was the math and the English, people that struggle with math and English, but it was realistically those that were dropping out, those that had already dropped out. How do we get you back and start talking to you about the things that you felt academically you were struggling with? Let's face it, by the time they come to us, a lot of them, we're doing a lot of catch-up. They come to us from access schools. I know a school, and I'm not going to say where, because I'm in LA. I'm sorry, I said that out loud. I didn't mean to say it. But I know a school somewhere, you know, in California where you can buy a high school diploma for $278. Yeah, $278 if you can get yourself a high school diploma. And so then you come to community college, man, you got your gold. Now you come to community college and you're like, uh-oh, I don't know how to write a paper. I don't know how to study. I don't know how to math. I don't know how to do, and then we're trying to, they're looking at us, the community college, right? They're looking at us and going, hey, why aren't they succeeding here? Why are they bouncing out of school? And they're pulling and struggling to pull them back, kicking and screaming. So how do we keep them there? And we're going to go over several things, but it was the fundamentals of algebra. It wasn't I don't want to sit in front of somebody and just be writing on the board and expect they're going to write the notes and understand what I'm saying. But what am I putting up there in the first place? And then give them a chance to ask questions. Here we go. I mean, as you can imagine, this is the way that I am in the Summer Institute. I'm bouncing all over the place, right? And so it was an opportunity for them to see that it's not just about somebody barking a bunch of answers on the thing and trying to have you figured out. It's about let's explain how do you understand it in the first place, the very basics, and then go up from there. Because you all know math is a language. If you don't know the very basics, you're not going to learn the language. And the same thing for English. If you can't write an essay, if you don't know how to research to do that, then you can't study. It's very difficult. If you can't, and you're flipping through textbooks, I have a master's degree, as of yesterday, by the way. So I flipped through textbooks in the master's program, right? And I'm supposed to be a master now. Right? Y'all can call me master. It's all right. It'll be fine. I flipped through these textbooks, and I don't understand a lot. I got to read over and over again. And like, I know myself well. So I'm not reading like this, going, what the hell, right? You know, I'm trying to figure everything out, because that's the way I learn, is like that. They don't know that. They don't know that they should be up, standing up, reading. They don't know that they should be writing on a board, reading. They don't know that maybe somebody should read it to them. They don't know those things. So how can they know how to do English, especially at a college level? Come on. So what we did was, let's enjoy those basic concepts, which created a foundation for future learning, of course. Next, please. So target population, I wrote a few things down too, because of some of the things that were said earlier. Our target population was those people that were dropping out, those people that were teetering on the edge. These are some of the youth that we worked with. This is actually our English tutor here, and Sam is actually, and I asked them if I could say their names and everything. I mean, obviously, if you know them, don't say anything or whatever. But Sam is a former foster youth, and he helped us out with our math program, but he was also in the program, and then he helped us with our English. And he's an amazing, amazing tutor. We reached out to our student success and our tutoring center to get these guys. And so the target population was them, but for us in our program, we don't base it so much off we're Chafee, because as these guys said, Chafee is like, you know, if you get Chafee, that means between 16 and 18 years old, you're in foster care, or you knew about the Chafee grant in the first place, or even if you knew about it, you applied for it. And like these guys are doing, reaching out to social services, right? So those kinds of areas, word of mouth, grabbing, scratching at our enrollment center because of everybody that checked that little box, which we have as well. EOPS, we have a strong relationship with EOPS and finding out the list of students. But our target population was basically those who were like 16 to 29. Those are the ones that we were reaching out. I say 29 because even at 29, I have a 60-year-old actually that I help. And the thing is, there's some things that we can do, and I explain to everybody that's over the age of 29 years old that comes in our program. There's some things I'm going to be able to do for you, and some things that I cannot. Some things I'm going to be able to fund for you, and some things I'm going to try to attach you to that will help fund with you. But that is our target. That's our target population, 16 to 29. And it is anytime, to answer that question that was earlier, anytime in foster care. If you are 12 years old and you can show me a document that you're in foster care at 12 years old, I will take you in my program, okay? We have this term because of the Guardian Scholars before it was under the foundation. The gentleman's name is that's the director of the OCC Foundation. His name is Doug Bennett, and he's the one that received that $25,000 check 15 years ago, right? And so, or 12 years ago. And so now what we do is we kind of take in Doug's kids as well. Right? And so those are kids that, like I had a young lady that was in Orangewood, which is the group home in Orange County. She was in Orangewood for 30 months when she was 16 years old, and they never gave her a case. They just kept her there and did what they, and then had to go in and out, but never gave her social work, never gave her kids, and then just booted her, right, because she had some family member in, like, Utah or something, from Orange County, Utah. But they never gave her a case, so she was never technically in the system. But she's been in our system. She was in our system. She was from Ukraine originally, so she didn't have enough time to be a California resident, so she wasn't getting a VAWA waiver. So we were trying to figure all that stuff out. We paid $900 for her to take some classes, right? Halfway through the semester, she came to my door and said, this is no joke. I thought it was a joke at first, and I thought this only happened in TV. She said, I'm running away with a circus. And I was like, what? Is there a camera around here somewhere? That doesn't happen for real. And she literally did that. Halfway through the semester, she ran away with the circus. Traveled all over the United States with this little circus. And then about 6 to 8 months later, I got a phone call from her in like Nebraska or some weird state. If you're all from Nebraska, Nebraska's not weird. It's not weird. All right, it's not weird. But she called me from some off-state, right, and said, I want to come home. How do I do that? And so we helped her to come home. And now she's staying with somebody, has a stable housing now, and she's back, has been back this semester and is doing quite well in the fashion design. So we're really excited about that. Next, please. Institute structure. Okay, so obviously you can't just go willy-nilly about something like this. You've got to do your research, got to do your setup. So what we did was we took a 2-week time period over the summer where we knew we wanted to do as much as we could, but knew also that we didn't have a ton of time and didn't have a bunch of money. Just to give you a little background, the Assistance League, if those of you that don't know what that is, an amazing group of women that get together and do incredible stuff in communities, and it's a great resource for connecting to people that want to help different programs. So if you want to look that up, the Assistance League is an amazing group of women. But they give us $1,000 to run this program, right? And so what we did was over 2 weeks, we for 1 hour, we would do academic instruction. If it was, say, on Monday we did English, on Tuesday we do math. Wednesday we do English, Thursday we do math for an hour. And then after that we would do an art project. And I'll talk about the art project in just a little bit, but and then the third would be group discussion about what happened today. We bring in a theme, and then we would discuss what's going on with them and the idea of school. That's what the third part would be. On the next page. Instruction provided by tutors. Okay, so we connected. So here's the biggest thing. This has been the nicest thing. So Guiding Scholars Before is run by our OCC Foundation, which means that they had all these different hats they had to wear, so it was very difficult for them to provide the services that they truly wanted to. So it was realistically, the kids would come in and say, I have a bunch of books that I need, be $500. They'd go, okay, here's your $500. And then if the student came in to say how they were doing for class, great. But if they didn't, they had no idea. So it was very difficult for them. We had one, when I first took this on, we had a young lady that was not in UPS anymore. She had gone through 3 semesters of dropping and failing all their classes. They had given her Guiding Scholars program, had given her almost $500 per semester for her books. That means $1,500. They had no idea how she was doing in school, and they had no idea where the heck the money went. And so I was like, whoa. So, and they were worried about losing her. And I said, wait a minute, you never had her. Didn't have her in the first place. So then we began this, where we started connecting more with her, and she's actually doing quite well as well. So we connected to things on campus. That's what that money, that idea, that first grant, the idea of building, allowed me to go out, bang on doors and go, hi, I'm Damien from the Guiding Scholars program. And they go, what? What is that? And I would explain to them. And so I would do that at the Children's Center. I would do that at the Student Success Center. I would do that at our counseling office. I would do that at our enrollment center. And I would connect all these people. And now I literally have a list of all their first names. And when I call, they go, oh, man, what do you need now? You know, but we enjoy each other. We enjoy the contact and the relationship that we've now been able to build. So through the Student Success Center, which they already have a program, again, stealing. Student Success Center already has tutors that are great at that. So it's all about me just showing up there going, hey, I need tutors for this and this. And they go, well, let me give you a bunch. And you figure out what you want. So we end up hiring some tutors from there to do this. And we would give them a $100 stipend at the end of the 2 weeks for helping us out. We provided lunch for you. Well, let me tell you this. We did this program for 2 weeks. We've now done it twice. And you'll see 2011 and 2012 in here. We had a lot of, we did surveys for each one. And we had a lot of great things. The only thing that we didn't have that was good was I made the lunch myself. And we had some people that weren't real big on that. Because every day I would show up with whole meat and make meat and all that stuff. So that was the only complaint, realistically, that we had. Other than we want more time, of course we want more time. But so we provided lunch. Next, please. So here's basically the idea. So focus primarily on the basic concepts that touched on that. Learning contextualization. Here's part of the problem, and I'm sure all of you are very much aware of this. I actually have, where'd Devin go? I actually have Devin right here to thank for this. A lot of my ideas in development, again, stealing. I'm great at that. But I was a very good thief as a kid. But I tend to think of this because many years ago, I don't know exactly how many, but several years ago, I was at an event, and Devin was talking about the idea of contextualization. And at that particular time, like I had heard it before, but what does that mean exactly in the classroom, and how do you do that? And so Devin actually taught me a lot about how to do that, and that's why, you know, that became such an intricate part about this program, was our students, like the gentleman that said, who's talking about hands-on? I wanted to be hands-on, right? That's him. So if you're going into an auto, the auto mechanics field, and you're learning by books, and you're a hands-on person, then you're going to be out of there unless you have someone telling you how to contextualize that book learning back to what it is that they wanted to do in the first place. So that's a lot of it contained, a lot of the information and all the stuff that we did here contained was about that. How do you bring it to your life? And maybe not necessarily like, all right, so 2 + 2 is 4 for math. So how many things you got in your pocket? Oh, you have 2 things in that pocket. And do you have 2 things in that pocket? Yeah, that's 4. It's not like that. But how do you connect to it? How do you keep yourself coming, right? So that contextualization was about that. And understanding, like I said, I learn like this. If I had my book up like this, I would learn much better than if I was sitting at a desk like this. I don't know why. Oh, sorry. I'm walking around with my hands straight up in the air as if I am praying to the steady God that I retain some of this information. I learned with my hand, you know, I learned up and about. I learned touching. I learned, you know, that's how I learn. And a lot of these students learn that way too, but they just haven't been told that. They don't know that. And when you go to, you know, most tutors are going to do the same thing, which is they're going to be sitting right next to you with the book right here, and they're going to read from that, do some highlighting, maybe do a little talking to the text, or get them out of their seats. And that's a lot of what we did as well. Open, non-threatening environment. Now, I can be threatening. Some of you in here might be going, I would not want to listen to this guy for an hour, right? Because I am very vocal. I am very, very, you know, boisterous and very cartoon-like, I would say. Some people have said that. But what I do is I try my damnedest to be warm and to let them know that no matter what I do, it doesn't matter about what I do, but listen to what I'm saying and then connect it in a way that works for you. I call that being extreme. I ran a 100-mile marathon last year. I know that's kind of gloating, but I will gloat because that's a long way. I ran a 100-mile marathon last year, the first time ever. I did it in less than 23 hours, 11 minutes. That's extreme for me. But being extreme for them might not be this. Being extreme for them might be understanding how you learn and then willingness to get up out of the seat to learn that way. That's being extreme, and I help them to teach that. And so the open, non-threatening environment was all about that. You know, if you've got to stand up on a chair to learn, I don't really care. And then we'll talk about a little bit more how about the, you know, because you can't stand up on a chair in a classroom like this with 350 other students and then expect the professor is not going to say anything, obviously. So how do you bring what I'm talking about to, you know, your other classes? And we'll talk about that later. Next, please. Large group and small group learning. Here's the deal. Reading apprenticeship. That was another thing that I think I actually did with Devin as well, I believe. Yes. God, I love this one. Reading apprenticeship and look this up because it's really fantastic. It does talk a lot about contextualization, and it talks a lot about learning in groups. A lot of it used to be to talk things out, you know, and so it's not just about me barking things at you and then you learning or writing it down and learning it later. How you understand it, sometimes is how you work through it. And just because you don't know the answer and the person beside you does doesn't mean you can't learn it if you're working your lips. So we would always start everything off by talking about certain things in the large group. And then we would always have them break off into smaller groups, and we would put paper up on the walls all over the thing, and we would have 3 or 4 people at a time. You'll see a picture of it where they're working things out or they're writing things down. You know, we had math problems that were up there, and they worked them out in groups. And we had Jacob had things that he had written, and he would have them work things out in groups. And so it was a lot about learning to do that in groups. Creating connections. I mean, we're going to talk a lot about the 2 art projects that we did. But creating connections was really, it was about catching the ones before they go and keeping them here. I mean, because here's the thing. If they're not on campus, they're not successful in their academic career in the way that they want to be. And if they're coming to school in the first place, I mean, here's the deal. For a lot of our foster youth, and I work with a ton of them now, and for a lot of our foster youth, and I include myself, I remember this as a kid too, there was no such thing. And when somebody said you want stability in your life, you want foundation and stability, what is that? Right? That's a very difficult concept to even comprehend. The one thing that they do have that's stable is the idea that education is the way out. And so you see a lot of them wanting to educate themselves. A lot of them want to go back to school. But the truth is that they're coming back to school and they're running into all these issues and then they're taking off. We never had them. So we need to keep them on campus. So how do we connect them to campus? That's a lot about what this was. It was about, you know, hey, reaching out to them, hey, you struggle in your math and English? Want to learn the basic concepts? We can teach you. Hey, do you like art? Want to learn how to do that? Hey, you want free lunch? We can learn how to do that too. Not everybody's got free lunch, but hey. Strategies for translating techniques. So how do you take this from what we're talking about, the extreme measures from what we're talking about, to the classroom? One of the biggest things that we talked about is we did a lot of talk about resources, a lot of talk about connection, a lot of talk about connecting as a group. And still from the first one that we did, I see those kids. They're still taking classes together. I see them outside of my office. I still see them hanging out. I have just a quick example. Sam, who you saw there, went to one of his professors. He's a neurobiology, this kid. 19 units. He's been in for 2 years. He's graduating this year. 19 units, 4.0, neurobiology major. Brilliant. You ever seen the movie Beautiful Mind? He's got that social kind of, you know, awkward and just amazing. And he walks around barefoot around campus. Buries the food that he's got left over, he buries in his backyard. I mean, just awesome stuff. But so he said to me, he said, I went to my professor after everything that we talked about. I went to my professor and I said, I learned better standing up. I learned that. That's what he said to him. I learned that. I learned better standing up. Can I stand up in the back of your classroom? Now, not every professor is going to do that. Luckily, he was very connected with professors, and he's allowed to. He can walk around the place if he wants to now. But that was a way for him to reach out, and that was the biggest thing. We talk a lot about connecting to resources, but it was really talking to your professors, helping them understand. One of the things that we said was, you are the boss here. The professor is just here to teach you, but if they can't teach you, you're not understanding, you're not learning, then you are the boss. That means you go up and say, I'm not learning. How can I learn here? Please help me. And so it was really a lot about that, you know, creating some confidence to be able to do that and to connect, again, back to connectedness. This idea, this is a very beautiful little house you got there. Thank you, Debbie. I appreciate that. But the idea here was something that Jacob, and I don't know if he stole it because he probably learned to be a thief like me, from me maybe. I learned by watching you. He created this house. He did all our basic English stuff, right? And so we have English 98 and English 99, which is your very basic English. And so he created this house. It's a very simple house. Didn't look anything like this. It was just the outline, right? I mean, he can't draw little things like that. Maybe he's an artist. I don't know. So he drew this house. First he did this. Here's the walls and the foundation. And he taught what the foundation, you know, the idea of the thesis, what that was. And then broke into how to do a thesis. What does this thesis? What does that mean? How do you do that? And so that was the foundation. And then he put on the roof and he explained what that was. And then he put on the door and what that was. And then each window was a window to a room. And each room was more details. And so it was this simple house that he did. And that was one of the things that all of the youth said, you know, out of everything that we were saying. And I'm like, dude, I just talked for half an hour. I thought that was pretty motivating. And yet it's the house that they remember. Right? But they did. And I loved that. They connected to the house, and it was a simple house that actually made a big difference. Same thing with math. I'm not good at math. The only reason I got through math was because of our tutor center on campus. And I stuck with them hardcore. I was there a couple times a week. But our math tutor drew this. It was a cross sign for those that are on the phone. It was a cross sign, a simple cross on the board. And she was teaching them a technique as to how to break down fractions or something, or percentages or something along those lines. But what she taught with that cross, the simple cross, everybody got. Everybody that was struggling in math was like, that's what I needed. You know, and that allowed them, and maybe they didn't go from math 30 to math 130, but they were able to go from that math to the next level of the language of math for them. And it was that simple idea, that simple symbol. Next, please. So why art, right? That middle piece, there was the academics first, art second, and then discussion. It was about an hour for each. Why art? Well, for a lot of reasons. Back to connectivity. A lot of our youth are very passionate, very emotional. A lot of them, and many of you, or most of you, if not all of you, already know, most of them are like writing already, creating, you know, painting, drawing, writing this most. I got an essay sent to me that was just, it brought me to tears, literally brought me to tears. and it was about her life, and it was poetic, and it was devastating, and it was amazing. And so what we started to think was, how can we connect? How can we keep them? If we're talking about doing a 2-week program, how can we teach them? We need to connect them. And so that was a way of doing that. And so what we did was we had actually a fusion artist who is a counselor on campus help us with this. This was a blank sheet. This white sheet was a blank sheet when we started. And what we would do is, youth started off by putting their faces like this, and they had a projector, and they would draw their heads, right? And then they would go back, and what we had them do was connect what they were drawing, and we had magazines, and they could cut, paste, color, whatever they want to do. But all these are their heads. That's Sam right there. I know you recognize him, but I was going to point that out anyway. But that's Sam right there. So all these heads here are all them, and it was what they're feeling about what we were talking about, what they're feeling about their life, what they're feeling about school, and how can they connect that to kind of growing to the next level in their life. And that was kind of the theme for us for this. And so they started doing that. So they started drawing all these, these things and attaching stuff. And then at the end, and this took 2 weeks, right? And so the idea was connect them by the art and then let them build something over the whole time together. And so they're together working and cutting and coloring, and they had no idea that this was even coming up because there was a blank piece of paper. And so once they had all their faces and hands done, then we had them paint this tree on the wall, right, on this big piece of paper. They painted the tree, and then they came in and put it where they wanted to. And all of a sudden, it was like community, connection. And the whole time we were doing this, they kept coming back. And whether or not they were coming back for that or coming back for the bag lunch, they kept coming back. And they kept learning little tools like that house and that cross. We had them, right? And they enjoyed it. And then they ended up staying together and keeping connected. Next. So the group discussion. So the last part of it, for both years, what we would do is some of the things that we talked about, which is I would bring in a theme at first, things like how do you do time management? We actually bought them all little day planners. How do you use that? Those kinds of things. Financial aid, we would talk about financial aid because everybody's pissed off at financial aid. I can say pissed off, can I? Okay. Everybody from had a financial aid seemed to be. So we would talk a little bit about that. Study habits. I apologize. We don't have any kids listening. Okay. I don't know. I have a nasty mouth. I'm sorry. Study habits, things like that. Time to reflect on the material learned. So the stuff that we were learning, what did you think? Did you get anything from it? This was the time. This was kind of our survey time for us, right? What worked and what didn't? What did you get? What can you use? That kind of stuff. Are you frustrated still? Like, well, let's duke it out. That was this time to be able to do that. And then we would always talk about, all right, so you're frustrated still. So do you know where the resource center is now? Do you know where the writing center is now? Do you know where your professor's office hours are? So that was our time to go back to connecting, not just us anymore, because now you also have to stretch them out. Now that you're comfortable with me, throwing bad food down their throat and screaming at them, now you want them comfortable with the professor doing that. Well, not the food, but, the screaming at them. Next. There it is, right? So it's this key connection, community, contextualize. The biggest thing for me, honestly, is if you don't have them in the seat, you don't have them anyway. So some way keeping them connected, some way bringing them together. The peer mentor thing is a beautiful idea of doing that. Just a grand way of being able to do that. What is on the next slide? There was one in here that I want to go back to, which was how we cheat. Okay. I'm going to go to the second one that said access, right, with the exclamation point. I've been saying to you that I steal. I don't go to like Walmart and steal. But I do steal from programs all the time. I do steal from my coworkers all the time. I do steal from counselors, from students. I steal from Devin, obviously. Sorry, Devin, I got that $5. I stole from your wallet. I steal a lot. And what I mean by that is, if you don't have the kind of money that we got at Career Ladders Project, it doesn't matter. I've gone to a lot of different presentations all over our state, and I've heard so many times, like where there'll be presentations from youth and presentations from administrators, and I'll hear a lot of the administrators, kind of squealing about money. And then and then I'm listening over here and I hear, connection, relationship, connection, relationship, connection, relationship. And I'm like, wow, that's what they're really looking for. So do you have to have a bunch of money to do what I just talked about? No, you do not. What you do have to have is the ability, the gumption to make a phone call, to go and bang on somebody's door. I share access. Our database, you should see it. It's a beautiful database. It has a ton of information. We can use it whatever way we want to pull reports from it. I send our database to our MIS reporting system, and they send me back everything I need. That simple, that easy. And that's an access. That's free. That doesn't cost anything. Connect with EOPS. We have a relationship with EOPS that is bar none the most beautiful relationship I've ever seen on campus anywhere. And it is the requirement that you go through EOPS to come to us because we don't have a lot of money. So if EOPS is giving $250 toward books this semester, we need to use that first. And if you got an additional $150, well, we're lucky enough that the donors and the fundraising that we're doing, we're going to be able to pick that up for you too. But it's always through EOPS. So connecting with EOPS. Build relationships, build a resource page. Our resource page literally has first names, and our resource page is about 7 to 8 pages long, and has first names of people at CASA, social services, website. I've called him before. Devin, Efren. Efren is our enrollment director, who we have a great relationship with. Steve Tomlaha is our vice president of student success. I mean, I could go on and on. First names. Why? Because it doesn't cost me anything. I'm just picking up a phone. That's all. That doesn't cost money to do that. Give the word. I'll go back to that. Leverage program resources. Transfer Center. Transfer Center is downstairs on the 3rd floor. I've been on to bug him all the time. Chris is a big dude. He's this heavy-set dude, right? He's real big. And I'm always down there talking to that dude about, hey, what can we do about, bringing a program into the, because he's the one that also has the key to all the classrooms that I use. And now he just, like, anytime he sees me, he just takes out his keys. Just hands it to me. Reentry Center. Literally today, Barbara called me right now and asked me if I wanted tickets to the Ducks. That's our Reentry Center. She wanted to know if my family wanted to go to Ducks because she's a lifetime duck holder or whatever. Not ducks, but quack, ducks. But counseling center downstairs. Now, Eli is great because Eli down in the counseling center, if they don't go through EOPS, then they don't get an EOPS counselor. So Eli down in the counseling center for general counseling, I'd make a phone call to him and go, hey, I need to send somebody to you. And they don't even have to make an appointment anymore. They just go down and they talk to Eli. Financial aid. Melissa Mosier is our director of financial aid. She helps it. Jenny Brewer actually just kind of took over because Melissa moved over to our district office. But Jenny Brewer, I mean, what I'm getting at is I notice people by first name. Why? Because it doesn't cost anything. All you need to do is make a phone call. That doesn't cost anything. Here's more cheating. Give awards. Jenny Brewer, I just said that name. This year we're doing an EOPS luncheon and a Guardian Scholars luncheon together. And we're going to give out plaques. We have 10 of our youth that are graduating. 10. Woo! That's a big number. 10. That's awesome. So we're getting out plaques and stuff. And while we're doing that, we're going to get Jenny Brew a certificate for being friends with Guardian Scholars because she works in financial aid. I mean, I like her. She's a nice person, but she also gives us money, right? And she also answers a lot of questions when it comes to financial aid. So Miss Jenny Brew is going to get a certificate for being a friend of Guardian Scholars. So give awards like that. There's no better way to go, hey, thank you very much. And then the next time you make a phone call, they're like, oh, he gave me an award. You didn't give me an award. Okay, so it's called first, right? And then fundraise. I mean, a lot of different ways. We're doing a buy a book program right now that we're launching through our marketing. Our marketing director of the entire college, his name is Jeff Hobbs. We're very close friends as well. And he's helping us to bust it out into the community. And all I did was show up with like a bad logo, first of all, which he beat up my logo. And the other thing was I told him, I said, hey, a student made that. And he goes, I don't care because he's not connected like me. So he picked the student up. And now the student is actually working with him. Student's a business major, working with our communications director to build a logo. We can't do better than that. You know what I mean? So my fundraising, so he's helping us launch that. Another fundraising idea that we're doing is getting small plaques with people's names on it. And we have benches all over our place, all over our campus. So you get there, people love this stuff. People love, look, that's my bench right there, right? So they donate a certain amount of money to get a plaque and we'll just plant it on one of the benches. People fart on that thing. I mean, come on. But they love it. They love it, though. So small ideas, small ways to bring, again, I got a dirty mouth, I'm sorry. Small ways to bring things in, I think we're all creative. I mean, we have to be. In the field that we work in, it's not like we're millionaires. And we make stuff up all the time. I mean, that's what we do, right? And so coming up with small ideas to fundraise, to bring in $100, to bring in $1,000, to bring in $500, it's only beneficial to the students that we work with, right? I think that's it. Yeah. I'm going to check this off. Okay.
Thank you so much, Damien. I'm going to put some information up.
Were you?
Can you put it up? Did it? Okay.
Do we want to start with questions?
Yes. So sorry, I'm trying to deal with multiple things at the same time. So I'm going to be putting up a slide for those of you on the phone that has our contact information.
Okay.
So give me 1 minute, everybody, to deal with the technology. Oh, just screwed it up. Okay, there we go. So for those of you on the phone, you're seeing a slide that has the contact information for myself and Devin and our website. And for those of you in the room, you're going to see that in a minute, but you have it on your handouts. A couple things I want to say before we jump into questions for Damon. I know we're supposed to end at 1, but we did start late. So for those of you who are able to stick around and go a little past 1, both on the phone and live, that would be great if people want to have a chance for a little more discussion. Number 2, if you do leave, everybody in the room should have received an evaluation form.
They're right here.
Yeah. Okay, so if you're going to leave, please grab, actually maybe, could you pass those out? We're going to pass out the evaluations. If you can just take a few minutes and make sure you fill that out and leave it over here before you go. If you leave, that would be great. And so with that, a couple other things. This whole thing has been recorded and it's going to be posted on our website at californiacollegepathways.org. So if you want to listen to it again or play it for some of your coworkers or something like that, that will be available. And we will be making the PowerPoint available online at that same website as well. So I think those are all my logistical pieces. So questions for Damon? Or comments or other ideas from your experience?
Hi, I'm Gail Scanlon with Los Angeles City College Foundation, and we have a robust Guardian Scholars program. And a lot of that, our program is based on what happened at Orange Coast and Rosemont College. So, but one thing that we do that's free is an intensive 3-day orientation before the beginning of the fall semester. So it takes place in August. So the students, as I said, it's 3 days. So they get introduced to their actual liaisons because we have liaisons from EOP&S and financial aid come. In fact, our financial aid representative won a statewide award, Carrie Apollonio, because she's so fantastic. And our one of our counselors, Mary Rueda, come to this orientation, so they not only hear that there's somebody they can talk to, they see the person and meet the person. And by doing this orientation, what happens is that they build a cohort. So we sort of treat our Guardian Scholars as a cohort. So they get to know each other really well. They don't need to do a whole trust thing where somebody falls backwards, somebody else has to catch them. So it's a very intense program. Plus they also, we have peer mentors as well. And the peer mentors take them on a campus tour. So they not only hear about the financial aid office or the business office or any other office, they actually take a tour of the campus so they see where that office is physically on campus. And then one of the other things we do that isn't free but is incredible is personal development class, because I know that Riverside and Moreno Valley, they were talking about a class. So we actually have that class. We have grant funding. It's expensive because we pay for the class, but it's only for Guardian Scholars. So it's part of building, and we do that twice a year. So that is part of building the cohort because it covers really important topics, like not only how to study, but also financial literacy and critical thinking. Because I think for those people who work with foster youth, they know that critical thinking in many cases is missing. because you make a decision of what seems best in that instant. That's the decision you make. You don't think about how can I get a better outcome if I thought about something differently or more. So that's something that we do. And also we pay tutors. We have about 6 tutors, so we have tutoring available throughout the day, both day and evening, for students who come at night. So that also is grant funded, which comes from the Pritzker, Anthony and Jeannie Pritzker Family Foundation. We had Stewart funding to begin our program for 3 years. The plan was to turn it over to the campus, but the campus doesn't have the money to pay for the program now. So thanks to Winnie Wexler and Jeannie Pritzker and Tony Pritzker, we have this incredible funding that helps us do these things.
Which are not friends of mine, so.
Yeah. Okay. But the orientation part is free, except you have to feed the kids.
Right. No hoagie sandwiches.
And one thing I wanted to add, just as a reminder, this is the first of our 4-part series on retention strategies. The other 3 are going to be in different locations around the state. But we're going to be doing the same thing we did today, simulcasting them all via web seminar, hopefully with a little less technological disruption as this one was. So for those of you who are here today and want to listen to the rest of them, make sure you watch your email for those, because we're going to be covering different topics at each one, different speakers at each one. And I'm hearing some, cohort models and some of these other ideas. We're going to be hearing from some other programs around the state as well.
I really appreciated you talking about the different learning styles, because most of the youth that we work with are predominantly African American youth. And oftentimes what we do is when they're having issues with learning, especially whether it's on the community college level or the 4-year campus level, it's actually going in and meeting with some of their professors and also introducing a cultural learning approach model, which a lot of institutions don't really understand or really even sometimes like to adopt in order to actually promote better outcomes from people of color who are foster youth or pursuing their educational goals. So I really appreciate you tapping into that, because that's one of the things that we hone a lot on, especially with how do you get our youth really engaged in the math, science, and technology, especially when they walk into campus, and that's not something that was a part of their educational history. But I wanted to ask, and I don't know if this is going to be a part of another one of your trainings, is, as far as the retention strategies, what do you do when financial aid goes awry with the youth, especially those who are in 4-year institutions? I mean, what type of retention strategies do EOP&S or Guardian Scholars step into when those issues occur?
I could make, if you have 2.5 hours, I could make a PowerPoint right now and have a lot of detail. No, that's a very difficult question. One of the things that we do for Guardian Scholars, and it probably is something that they're going to be doing, I would imagine, but is, financial aid has that idea of probation. So if you fail, you drop or whatever, then you go into probation, then you lose your financial aid. Well, for us, one, we want to make sure that they get their bond waiver at all times, no matter what. So even if they're on probation, they can still get that. But then, if we have several youth that are on financial aid probation, and because of the outreach that we've done in the finances, that we've been able to procure up to this point, which, very, very similar. We ask for grants and things like that too. We make sure that the things that, would pertain to their education, that it's still taken care of. So we still buy their books, even if financially it doesn't kick in, even if they're not in EOPS, we still make sure their books are paid for. If they're in trade classes, like, for instance, autumn camp, things like that, we make sure that they have the tools that they need, all the classroom materials, everything that we kind of, what I basically did is, again, I stole, really everything that Guardian Scholars from Cal State Fullerton does. And what they do is they have a lot of fun, and so they can provide a lot of stuff. But I took that idea as to, if they don't have to worry about whether or not they buy a book or a burger, then they get to focus more on their education. And so we try to get that, and we try to use that as kind of a theme, that we want to make sure that everything that pertains to your education here, that it's paid for, your books and materials and all that. And then on top of that, in our intake packet, the first thing that we talk about, there's like probably, we make sure that they're connected to all services and programs that's available to them. And the first 2 questions on there is about housing and food. And so if we can pay for all your books and all your materials fees, and now you're solid in school, where are you living for the next 2 years of your life? And if they can't answer that, then it's where we go from here. Because if I buy $500 worth of books and you live on the street, it's not going to do you a lot of good, except maybe you can hold them over your head if it's raining. So, yeah, it's a difficult thing. What's that? That's it. Yeah, I guess a lot. Yeah, absolutely.
If I can make one comment on that as well. With the new legislation that's now in place that extends the availability of foster care support to age 21, AB 12, it's really important if you have youth in that 18 to 21-year-old age range, that you're making sure that they're actually taking advantage of that resource, because I've definitely come across campuses where there's youth who were eligible for AB 12 benefits and didn't realize it, and it can be complex. And this is something I've helped campuses troubleshoot with individual students to figure out if they're eligible for benefits and advocating with counties when they're giving them a hard time and that type of thing. So make sure that you're accessing that resource fully if that's something that's available to them. I think.
I just want to say I really appreciate your energy.
Oh,
Yeah, I really appreciate it. But piggybacking on the strategy, learning strategy, I love that large classroom. What did you say here? Large group, small group learning. Yeah, that's wonderful, man. What that does is once they get the picture and then they break it down into a smaller group, and then if one person gets it in there, what that does is now he's the teacher.
Yeah.
And I'm a firm believer in believing that if you really want to know something, teach it.
Yeah.
Teach it, and that's what that does.
Yeah.
It breaks it down to a small group where they become.
and it doesn't. I think also if it's coming from that peer mental idea, if you've got somebody that you break up in a small group and we got one student, oh yeah, I get this, and the other students are asking questions, it's not condescending. They're sitting there struggling there, and they literally feel more comfortable going, "What? How did you do that?" And so it is easier for them to kind of work things out, and they watch it be worked out. And I think that's huge, right? Again, I stole that from Reading Apprenticeship. Look that up. Please look that up. I'm telling you, you'll really enjoy that. Anything else?
Any other questions?
Awesome.
Well, thank you everybody so much for being here today, bearing with our little technological snafus. Hopefully you'll participate in the future ones to come via web seminar, or if you have a big travel budget, you can come to Fresno for the next one in April. Also, Devin and I are both available to provide technical assistance to college campuses on a whole range of issues. And so if you have some particular needs, you want to implement a program like this on your own campus or something else, or just any kind of need that you have around starting a program, doing fundraising, connecting with the academic side of the house, all the different needs that you might want assistance with, or just somebody to bounce ideas off of, definitely feel free to get in touch with either one of us. This is Devin, and I'm Debbie. So with that, thank you all very much for being here today. Thank you.